Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 258 of Real Blend, a podcast that thinks the reason Bo is so afraid is because he's not ready for Oppenheimer yet. My name is Sean O'Connell. I'm the managing editor here at Cinema Blend.
That's a great
just not
one.
ready, Kev. He's not ready.
And we have to give a little context because in our text thread, all I do every time Jordan Peele or Christopher Nolan is about to release a movie is I always say that we're not ready because we are.
And you're scared.
And we're scared. That's a great joke. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. On this week's show, lots of movie reviews. We have a ton of things that are coming to theaters, and we've managed to see almost all of it. So we'll have some comments and opinions about that stuff. And then Dexter
Which is really
Fletcher,
hard to do.
Well, that's our job. I mean, that's what they pay us to do. Would you interrupt me? I was saying Dexter Fletcher is going to be our guest. Dexter Fletcher directed Rocketman. He has a movie coming out called Ghosted. I was going to throw something else out there. I'll leave it alone. He has a show called Ghosted coming to Apple TV Plus. It stars Ana de Armas and Chris Evans, and you will hear that momentarily. But first, let me introduce the boys. I'm going to start with Jake Hamilton of Fox 32 in Chicago. Hi, Jake. How are you doing today?
Hello, handsome. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well. I was going to wear my AMC Theaters sweatshirt today. I want to thank the good folks at AMC Theaters for sending me a copy of this. What does it say? Heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
Heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
Yeah, but it's really... It's really, really warm here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And true, like what happens to you when you get a girlfriend thing. My girlfriend has taken the hoodie. I no longer possess it. Yeah, it's her hoodie now. I no longer have it.
Mine.
You guys got AMC hoodies?
You didn't get one?
We did.
No.
Kev, if you check an email thread where I actually responded to you twice and said,
did you?
What size? I did. There's an email.
What size and what color?
What size and what color? And your mailing address.
And do you want Nicole Kidman to drop it off herself? And we all got to meet Nicole Kidman.
All did.
It was great.
Yeah.
That's Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. Hi, Kev. How are you?
Jonathan, Jacob, Gabriel, good to see you all. Great to be on with you guys as always.
So much stuff to get to this week. Let me say hi to Gabe. Hey, Gabe. How you doing?
I'm good. I am wearing a sweatshirt, but it's not my AMC one. I didn't want to rub it in, but maybe next week.
What is NR?
Actually, mine, I got a different one. I'll wear it next week. Mine says "We make movies better." I think I ended up getting
interesting. I got the heartbreak one.
Yeah, I know. I kind of wanted that one because it's funny, but I ended up getting a crew neck instead of a hoodie.
We're really rubbing this in Kevin's face.
I know.
I'm so sorry, Kev.
It's okay. No, I just missed the email.
We have a bonus thing that we do, a premium that you can sign up for. It gets you additional Real Blend episodes on Mondays, a newsletter from me. This week, I'm actually writing a newsletter. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be about. And you get an ad-free version of the show. So that's the reason why you want to sign up for the Real Blend Premium. Check the description for information on where you can sign up. I want to plug that we had a bonus episode. We have a lot of interviews coming up recently in the pipeline, basically, which is leading to us having bonus episodes that drop on Wednesdays, in addition to the interviews that we do as part of the full shows. One we just did with the director of Polite Society, which is a movie I'm going to be badgering you guys about for the next couple of weeks to go see it as it rolls out into theaters. It's one of the best things I've seen so far this year. But by the time you are listening to this, we will also have a bonus episode up with the filmmakers of the film Chevalier, which was at Toronto last year. This is Stephanie Robinson and Stephen Williams. They joined the show. We got a chance to talk to them. That is up on all of our different channels where you can hear our audio, and you can listen to or watch it if you want to on the YouTube channel as well, too. But this week, as previously teased, is Dexter Fletcher, who is coming back to the show. We had Dexter on, right? For Rocketman?
No. It's his first time.
Well, we interviewed him for the junket when we were in London for the Rocketman junket. And he's a great guest. He has terrific stories about working with Chris Evans and Ana de Armas. And he shares a little bit about his Sherlock Holmes 3, which may or may not happen. You have to listen to the interview to figure that out. And talks about Ghosted, which is the movie that's coming to Apple TV.
And he plays the IMDb game.
Oh, that's right. He does. I forgot about that. So these are all fantastic reasons why you're going to want to listen to our interview with Dexter Fletcher. So let's throw it to that right now.
It's good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Wow, we wish we could be in person and maybe share some of that wine with you. How are you, my friend?
Well, that's all right. It's actually water. I hate to disappoint you. It's just water, but You'd be welcome to it if you want.
Well, you might want some wine by the time this conversation's over, and I'm going to be the one. I'm Jake. That's Sean. I'm going to be the one to kick us off. We're so excited to talk with you about Ghosted. One of the things I wanted to bring up was, as I was watching this, I couldn't help but think that, like, if this movie were made 20 to 30 years ago, maybe in even the 90s, early 2000s, the roles would have been switched. It would have been the guy who was the cool spy and the girl chasing after him. And I'm just sort of curious how you perceive this movie being what it is as a result of the time frame in which it was made.
Well, I mean, you could even argue that if it was only 10 years ago, that might well have been the case. You know, things have taken a very positive shift in the last decade or so, I think, which is great. And I really felt that when I read it, and Chris came to me about it, that it was really baked into it. And then, Chris had a very clear idea about the fact he wanted to be an ordinary guy, a relatable ordinary guy. And this is something he hadn't really done for a while. And the simple fact of the story is that Anna's character is something, I suppose, unexpected, but that just adds to the fun of it and the entertainment of it all. But we didn't really take it much into account. We just went, okay, that's the setup. This is there's the meet cute. That's all healthy. That's all good. What's the thing that gets in the way of that? And it just happens to be that her job is somewhat dangerous and he gets himself in the middle of it. I thought it was just funny that, you got this very high achiever and suddenly some bloke decides to follow her to work. And just, that to me was funny. And Anna is brilliant at being angry. So that was
good. Dexter, these two come at the project with already established chemistry, and really palpable chemistry. I think they bounce off of each other incredibly well. What does that give you when you're going through your preparation, when your leads already have that established amount where they can almost hit the ground running? Does it really put you ahead of schedule in terms of where you want to get to?
Sean, the truth is, they can't stand each other. They're like cat and dog. They're like oil and water. These two, they don't even want to be near each other.
That's the headline we're going to take out of this interview.
Exactly. Right? I'm trying to think, what can they sell? What will make it interesting? I had to put them in a room together with nothing but a McFlurry, and they had to fight for it. No, you're right. You're ahead of the game with these two because they're great friends. And in fact, almost to the point where they're sitting in the corner on their chairs just laughing at some random thing that only they get, that they know is very funny between the two of them. And the rest of us stand around, looking slightly bemused, and one of them's making the joke, the other one's getting it. And I was always like the third party who was like missing the point. But no, it does bode well for the projects. But also, they're great admirers of each other as well. And I think the fact Chris was really excited for her, that she was stepping up in this way that people were really excited about after Bond, talk of ballerina. There's a real push for like, oh, she's going to be that person. She's got that chops. And she equally found it hysterically funny of him dragging around his luggage, falling over himself, swallowing rocks, and being generally pretty inept. And so that was a lot of the fun of it as well. They're really kind of like admirers of each other. It sounds kind of corny to say maybe, but it's one of the lovely facts of it. And so I was very lucky, ahead of the game there. Yeah.
Awesome. This is very inside baseball, but you'll understand it. I did the junket for The Gray Man last summer, and they paired them together for the junket room. Now their two characters hardly even interact in the movie. Logically, it makes no sense, but they put them together just because they're so good together.
Yeah. I know. In Grey Man, I was like, they're not really in any scenes together. I saw them do that junket, and they were like, yeah, but we have such a laugh. I was like, I bet they don't even know what the other one does until they see the movie. But no, it is, and it's just a testament to their friendship, really. And it's Chris is a great guy and much loved by everyone he works with. So when things didn't quite work out with Scarlett, which was his other great plan, I think that it was his next go-to sort of. I mean, I said to him, "What about Anna?" Who's on the phone, within the next 3 seconds. So, yeah.
Oh, I don't even think I knew. Was Scarlett Johansson supposed to play the part?
Initially, that was the idea. Yeah, when he came to me and we were talking about it and Skydance, and they were like, "Okay, we really think there's a good chance that Scarlett." She was certainly engaged, and Chris and her had been speaking about it, and there was the conversation got to a certain point, but then she had to make a choice, and another project moved, and so we didn't fit into her window. So gotcha. And subsequently, Ballerina moved, and we did fit into Anna's window. So it's one of those things. Look, it's the choice between, I don't know, a rock and a hard place. I mean, I wasn't going to complain about either option.
Sure. Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
For sure. We interviewed a director of an action film about a month ago, and he told me something interesting. He said that when we started out making the movie, I got a whiteboard and I split it into two, and I wrote down everything I love about this genre, and I wrote down everything I hate about this genre. And I was fascinated about the hate side, things that you just can't stand. So I am curious, when you approach a genre like this, a well-loved genre, a genre that's been explored by filmmakers, what are aspects of movies like these, of this genre, that you say, you know what, that's been done to death, can't stand it, hate it when other people do it, I'm not going to do it?
Look, I think, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I think that sort of applies as well to the vision that you bring to the film yourself. I mean, I know what I do love. And I always reference Raiders and that first big chase when he's on the horse and he's chasing down the truck. And certainly it put me in mind of that for the first one, because and he says a brilliant line in that. She says, "What are you going to do?" He says, "I don't know. I'm making it up as I go along."
Yeah.
What I feel is that is genuine. That's what Spielberg and Harrison brought to that moment, is that he doesn't know what he's doing. He's making it up as he goes on. And that means he's not ahead of any of the punches. He's, if anything, he's behind them or taking them. And so that's something that I wanted to instill into my action as much as possible. Because I understand there's a great choreographed moment, but it seemed to me that what I hate is feeling like that everything is just too conveniently dodged and sweet and move. And, I suppose it's that martial art kind of approach, which means that you're so good at what you do, you can see the move before it happens, which I don't like that. I want to see the move as it happens, or even after it's happened. That for me feels more immediate and fun. So I really lean into that more, certainly with this film, because Emmons' character doesn't know what is going on. And that is that's to be celebrated and exploited. And she is dealing with, a 6'2" baby, in effect. And so that puts her a huge disadvantage. These are things that are all assets, not and so I didn't do the whiteboard thing. I might try it, but I don't know. Maybe my list of hates would be really, really long. Or I just love everything. I just love it all.
You mentioned not seeing the punch coming. It reminds me, Tim Blake Nelson has a moment where he punches someone. I won't mention who. And the way that you positioned your camera, his punch is coming straight at the camera. I thought that was a really unique place to put your camera in that shot.
Thank you. Yeah, I know exactly, and I do, and in the sound mix, I dial up all of those impacts as well, so they just feel. It's the same when Anna's ex-boyfriend takes a hit as well. I just want them to come as a bit of a jolt, a bit of a shock. It's all about, I suppose, about rhythm and timing and stuff, and just how you play into those moments. So I am proud of those anything that gives us a little start or a little jump, because it's so hard to do. People are so savvy and kind of film literate.
Sure.
To be able to get something like that by them, or just still surprise them is a real point scored. And you can't blame them for that. It means you just, as the filmmaker, have to be smarter.
Absolutely.
Be smarter.
Before we move off of Indy, I have to mention that line delivery by Harrison is the greatest, because it could be played like a cliched hero, but he literally plays it like a dude, where he's just like, I don't know. I'm making it up as I go along. It's such a terrific line reading. I'm so glad you brought it up.
Oh, it's quality. But, if you can get those moments, it's the same for me when Chris says, "I'm the boyfriend." It was like that came out of like, what's he going to say here? There was like different options, and you knock stuff about, and he's like, "I'm going to try this," and I was like, That's really good.
Yeah. You know, it's funny that you mentioned Scarlett Johansson as potentially being part of this, because I was already going to bring up, and I'm not going to spoil anything. I don't want anybody to know what's in it, but there are some very significant Marvel actors who pop up throughout this movie. Many of them with ties to Chris Evans. I wanted to know, well, I guess I was going to ask you, was this something deliberate that you did to try to break a record of cameos?
What?
Or is it just simply that everyone's tied to the Marvel universe and you can't cast anyone?
I just cast the best people for the job. That's all I did. And if there happens to be some loose affiliation with any other members of the cast, it's purely coincidental, and I'm surprised as anyone that they might have some previous acting history with Mr. Evans, as prolific as he is, ubiquitous even. Look, you know, it's one of the great joys. I mean, for me, that sequence is an important sequence anyway, and I was really keen to just use those actors as actors. The fact that they bring that extra added fun, you know, does not hurt the film. It could have, I think, you know, you could be like, hang on a minute. And it would, I think for me, the success of that is that it doesn't take you out of the story that we're still following.
Not at all.
And
it doesn't.
And they were all very cognizant of that. That was what I spoke to them about. And even with the final appearance as well by that, our special friend there. Right. With an eye patch, you know, because we're sort of trying to disguise it's him, but it's no getting away from who it is. Yeah. But again, we just don't want it to take you out of the fun of the movie, the story. And I think we're mostly successful at that. I
think so too.
Oh, thank you. Good.
You know, I want to use one of the ideas and the themes of this movie to ask sort of a bigger question. The theme being just being surprised by someone not being who you think they're going to be, someone having a lot more layers and a lot more going on than you initially expected. You've worked with some of the greatest actors working today, an incredible collection of actors. Of all the actors you worked with, which one had more going on than you thought? Which one was different than you expected them to be? Was it completely 180 from maybe what you had initially even signed up for?
I don't know about 180. I mean, that's an interesting question, because it's almost like I'm going to say, well, I thought Tim Blake Nelson was going to be really, you know, very perfunctory, but he turned out to be really actually quite layered and detailed. No, I always endeavour to work with the actors to you know, dig as deep as possible and have as much fun exploring those characters. I suppose I could say Bryce Dallas Howard was, not in an ungenerous way. Look, she's great, but for her coming on as Elton's mother, which is a woman born in 1950 or 1940, who was a teenage mother, you know, and from a very particular part of London with a particular kind of accent. For Bryce to come and create Reggie Dwight's mum on Rocketman was not. I don't say, you know, look, actors that's their stock in trade. They've got to be able to do something that's a million miles away from them. But Bryce, you know, if you watch it, she's loathsome in a lot of respects in that character, and Bryce is anything but that. Right. And so you know, and the fact that she was prepared to go there. And you know, make her hair black and make herself look as different as we all know her to, you know, she looks nothing like she does in Jurassic World. I mean, her dad didn't even really recognize it was her when he came and did a set visit. He was, you know, he was the transformation was so profound. and you know, she works on that accent, which is not easy. You know, acting with a different accent is no matter how adept you are, is I'm convinced one of the hardest things to do. So I suppose that would be, you know, just in terms of transformation. probably a good answer to that.
That's a great answer. I don't know why I have this memory, but I will always remember this. Sean and I actually sat next to each other at the screening of Rocketman in London the night before the junket. And I remember, Sean, what were we, maybe 15, 20 minutes in, and I just remember we looked at each other and go, is it just me or is this fucking great? And just like it was, I don't know what, like you telling that story just unlocked that memory in my mind, but I specifically remember that moment.
I don't know how far into the film it was, but I think it was when he started to perform your song. I think it was.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That brilliant sequence. And
yeah, it's a special moment. It is. And she's there. She's, she's there.
She is.
They're standing in the door like, what the fuck am I hearing? And,
right. Yes.
No, I appreciate that very much. Thank you. That's great.
So I want to touch back on something that you mentioned earlier, which is your ability to tap into something we don't get to see that often, which is Chris Evans' physical comedy. There are moments in this that are so out of character for him, from what you would expect from his prototypical acting style. And even when he transitioned over to Knives Out, he still played the sort of very confident, smarmy, sort of arrogant character. Yeah. But there's this side of him that people are going to see in your movie that they do not expect. Is that always in him? Did he have to work really hard to get to that point? His timing is really sharp in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think he'll thank me for saying it, but not another teen movie, which is his first movie.
Yes.
He's very funny.
He is.
This is a podcast that loves that movie.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. He's fucking funny in that movie. And those movies can be quite forgettable. But even I was like, that guy's funny, man. He looks great, but he's genuinely funny. That was my only personal takeaway from that. I always remember him for that. Awesome. Watching Captain America, I'm like, that's that teen movie guy. He's and look at him now. And so when I first met him, I was like, I got to say it, man. He was like, oh my God, you saw that movie? I'm like, I really loved you in it. I thought it was fun. I thought that's a funny fucking movie because Americans love making films about their teenage high school years. We don't do it in the UK like you guys do. But you made a lot of movies about, from American Graffiti to Porky's to, Animal House to Scream. And, there's like this whole, raft of them that are like, okay, there's something really going on in the American psyche about their youth, about those formative years that we... In the Brits, we don't sort of have that. So I liked that movie because it sent that genre up really well. Yes, stereotypes and tropes, and he was like, oh wow. So I really was excited when this came along because I was like, I want that Evans. Yeah, it's the Evans I want.
Right. And sometimes he gets a little too far away from it. You think maybe he forgot how to do it, but I don't think that's the case.
He hasn't. He could do. I mean, his physical comedy is great as well as his. I swallowed a rock for me is like a great fucking line, and you take someone of Evans' skill to deliver it.
Yeah,
it's all well and good to read "I swallowed a rock" on a page, but to genuinely believe it, it takes real skill.
Dexter, I'm going to show you a photo that we keep on our phones for the Real Blend text thread. We send that around to each other often as a response to.
I am ashamed at how many places in my phone I have that picture saved at different points.
I have the same picture of me like that.
Weirdly enough, Sean does too have it. Sean also has a picture of you. And I never understood how he had it.
Yeah, it was a private conversation. But
Dexter, if you don't mind, we're going to shift gears and talk about a whole range of things. And this next question I'm going to ask you is one that I only am allowing myself to ask you now that a few years have passed. But if you were to ask me, what is the Oscar thing that has annoyed me most over the last 25 years? My number one answer might genuinely be Taron Edgerton not getting an Oscar nomination for Rocketman. I've never been able to wrap my brain around that. I've never been able to say, how does this person win an Oscar for this? And Taron doesn't even get nominated. I'm just sort of curious as to what that whole Oscar season was like for you and how you can wrap your brain around the idea that people look at that performance and don't give it an Oscar, because I've never been able to make any sense of it.
Oh, that's so hard. That's really hard for me to answer. And I really appreciate you saying it, to be honest. And I know Taron would. I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, the year before, Ramie deservedly won the Academy Award for Freddie and Bohemian Rhapsody. Whether that was a factor, I don't think so, because I don't know. It seems a bit spurious and a bit shallow to just go, well, one rock star won it one year, and someone playing a rock star can't win it the next year. I don't think that carries. I don't know whether it was what other people nominated or other films were out that year. I got to say, it's a bit of a blur for me, even. I mean, look, he did win the Golden Globe, and that was an incredibly thrilling night for us all. And Elton was there with him and was, I think, more happy than anybody for Taron. I don't know. Look, there's many different theories about the Academy Awards, isn't they? That they're all a load of nonsense, or they are absolutely just where the feeling is and the zeitgeist is of that moment, and those are the performances or the films or the craftspeople that bubble to the surface and get their awards. And I'm fairly confident that Taron will be able to deliver something that will address that, if you know what I mean. That he will have another opportunity, because he's a phenomenal actor, and he's 32 years old or something ridiculously childish like that. Right. He's going to have other windows, I think. And look, luck of the draw. I mean, it's really lovely that you feel so passionate about it, and yeah.
I hope you hear other people's responses to the film, and and that you understand how well it's been received by everybody.
Rocketman?
Yes.
Yeah. No. Look, I get a lot of affection and great goodwill and from people. Yeah. Look, and I think it's also a testament to partly, in large part, to who Elton is and how. And what he's achieved and done in his life, and what his music does for people, and to be a part of that historic, canon is obviously great. And it comes with a responsibility when you make a film like Rocketman. You can't just think, well, just do the old Elton John story, that'll be good. But the expectation is the bar's high, but that's important, because it means you hopefully can deliver. No. Look, it's undeniable the effects of Rocketman. I benefit from it now. I get Chris Evans phone me up and say I've got a script. And I would love to hear your take on it. So, right. And here I am talking to you now about Ghosted. So I definitely feel the reverberations of it.
Dexter, your name had been attached to the third Sherlock Holmes. I'm not sure if that's still the case. So is that a project that you're currently working on or in development?
Not currently, no. I mean, the simple truth of it was that I worked closely with Robert and Jude, but mainly Robert, for quite a while on it, and we got it to a certain point, and then COVID hit, and that threw everyone to the winds, and these things are so delicate that now trying to pull all those threads back together to a meaningful place is proving to be difficult. I'm busy, he's busy, people are busy. It's a big old thing, and I haven't spoken to him for a while, so I don't know where his appetite for it is. I'm sure it's there, but how it fits in his plan, because plans changed, I can't answer to that. If it came back, I would love to do it. I'd love to see it, because the script was brilliant. He's a genius to my mind.
Who wrote the script? Who worked on the script?
There were different people. We ended up working with a fantastic writer called Joe Pennell. Okay. Joe Pennell did a fantastic adaptation of Cormac McCarthy's The Road.
Oh yeah, sure, nice.
Somewhat darker than but it had that kind of meat to it.
Loved it.
Joe, yeah, exactly. Joe's a great writer. So we had a great 10 days at Robert's place out in the Hamptons with him, just Sherlock Holmesing for 10 days continuously.
That's a dream. That's a dream.
I can't tell you. It was like being a little slice of heaven. That was it was so brilliant, and to see Robert and the way his mind works and the sort of the backflips that he could do just with that character was like wow. So yeah, my hope is very much that one day somewhere that will if not with me even, but with somewhere that Robert makes that film.
Okay. We'll keep our hopes up.
Yep.
Dexter, we have a game that we play on this podcast that we tend to save, I think, Sean, you can agree or disagree, like for our more fun guests. And I feel like you would be perfect for this. And it's called the IMDb game. And basically what it implies is that every person who is on IMDb, whenever you pull up their page, there are 4 titles that it says, this person is most known for these 4 things. Now, the fun part is sometimes it is the most random, arbitrary thing that you would never even imagine. Like I can't believe that they think that person is best known for that thing. Sometimes it's editing or writing or directing, whatever the case may be. And oftentimes we ask our guests, what do they think their 4 titles are that IMDb says they are most known for? So I would like to pitch the IMDb game to you and say, what do you think Dexter Fletcher is known for?
My most fun, my God, you're talking 50 years of experience. 50 years.
And when you hear what they are, you're going to be very frustrated, I guarantee.
Yeah, I'm sure I will be. It's going to be something like, well, I would hope Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels is in there, but I suspect it won't be. Will it be like Hotel Babylon, which was a TV show that I did for the BBC for a while? No, judging by the look on your face, no.
Well, we're not giving anything away.
We're writing down your picks.
Oh, I see. Yeah. What else might be on there? I did a Green Cross Code film when I was. Green Cross Code is a road safety film when I was 6 years old with the current Doctor Who at the time, whose name is John Pertwee. That was called Splink. There was the worst anachronism for stopping at the side of the curb of the road and not getting run over. That was literally 50 years ago.
That's a spicy pick.
Yes, I'm going as random as I possibly. It won't be that. I Hate Susie. Maybe I did this great series with Billie Piper. I did like one episode with her, but the show was quite fruity and quite wild. That's 4, I think.
Those are 4.
Those are your 4. If you want to lock those in, we can.
Doom. Doom. I want to change Splink for Doom. The road safety one change for Doom. I reckon Doom might have made it because it was one of Dwayne's earliest films. Doom might have made that.
Okay. Jake, would you like to?
I can tell you that you made a good call changing Splink to Doom because Doom is on the list.
Come on!
Doom is on the list. Lock, Stock is on the list.
Yes!
So
that's good. I like it.
You missed the other 2. The other 2 are The Three Musketeers.
Wow.
And Kick-Ass.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Those are the 4.
I mean, one scene in Three Musketeers.
That is one of the things you are most known for.
Well, and Kick-Ass.
I'm kind of stunned that you didn't say Rocketman, and I'm stunned that Rocketman is not one of them.
I know. I don't know. I think, I don't know if my IMDb page is really in a mess. It needs
that's going to be changed in 20 minutes. They're going to get a call and that's going to be completely changed
and get a huge PR company and I'm going to engage them now and that's it. It's all going to change. It's going to be Rocketman and Ghosted. That's all it's going to say.
We will play with people like John Turturro, and he'll have like Transformers movies on there and you're like,
I bet that's it. Exactly, because when you've been around, doing all these different things, someone like John or myself, it's so random. You don't know what and what puts them on the front page. Who chooses those most known?
We honestly don't know.
Yeah.
There's some kind of algorithm that's choosing those things. So
well. Al should be ashamed of himself, whoever he is.
Algorithm. Mr. Rhythm.
Mr. Rhythm.
Yes.
Mr. Rhythm should be.
Well, soon enough, when audiences are able to see Ghosted on Apple TV Plus, I think that will shoot back up to the top of your IMDb. And we want to thank you so much for coming on the Real Blend podcast to talk about it with us.
It was great. Thank you.
Dexter, it's always fun to have you on the show, man. Hopefully we'll get you back for the next one.
I'll be there. I'd love that. Thanks.
Thank
All
you,
right,
sir.
Thanks so much. Take care now. Thank you so much to our friends at Apple TV Plus and, of course, to Dexter Fletcher for joining us for the new film Ghosted, which we will review later on in the show. We're going to get to this week in movies and all the different titles that are going to be coming, as I mentioned. But before we jump on, I want to pick Jake's brain a bit about Picard, because I believe you're the only one on the show who's watching it. And I've heard nothing but incredible things about this third season of the show. So I want you to talk to me about, what you're enjoying about it. But can you also frame it from a point of view of, if I didn't watch Next Generation or, some of the other shows that were relevant to the Picard era, am I going to enjoy it as much?
I still think you'll enjoy it just from an aspect of good storytelling. But I mean, there are a lot of aspects that at least require you, in terms of like, if you're going to get the full package deal of the feels, as it were, that you should be somewhat connected to these next gen characters. It's like in the same way that, sure, you can watch the Star Wars prequel trilogy, but if you don't know who Luke, Han, and Leia are, it's not going to mean as much to you, kind of thing.
The story is still good, though. The story is still
the story's fantastic. But what's great about that is, most fans of Next Gen would probably tell you that the last Star Trek film that they got with that cast, which was Star Trek Nemesis, was a massive letdown. Like it was sort of a lackluster finale, a lackluster send off for one of the great sci-fi TV cast of all time. And so that always was sort of a blunder on sort of sci-fi greatness that it kind of just went out on a sour note. And for a lot of people, this third season of Picard, specifically this third season of Picard, is serving as that epic finale and goodbye that they were never given, that they felt like they were owed. Nemesis failed in so many aspects. Picard solves that problem. And the funny thing is, what I've been telling people, look, it's a lot to tell people to, watch 3 seasons of a TV show that they've never watched. But what I tell people is, you can just kind of watch season 3 and you'll be fine. There's one major plot point that I could sum up for you in about 30 seconds that you need to know that happened in season 1. Season 2 is entirely skippable, and then jump right into season 3, which is its own story, and through really fun, organic ways, one by one, slowly starts bringing back the Next Generation cast. That's cool. In really great, smart ways. There are fun bites of nostalgia that are earned in a lot of ways. It's not like, hey, remember this thing, remember that thing. It's everything about it just feels right. The guy who's the showrunner right now, Terry Matalas, if they're smart, they will let him run the future of Star Trek. They will let him become the Kevin Feige of Star Trek. It's just, we've got by the time this episode drops, the series finale will have aired. And, guys, I talk a lot about how, I used to wake up before work and watch Mando, and that's how great it was. And that was the significance of that show to me, that I did not want it ruined for me. And I no longer do that. In fact, I'm 3 episodes behind on Mando, and like the finale comes out tomorrow, and like, I'll get around to it when I get around to it. I will be waking up early. It is a shame. But unfortunately they couldn't get Jack Black or Lizzo for Star Trek Picard. I will be waking up early before work to watch the series finale of Picard. And this past episode 9, without giving anything away, it featured a 15-minute sequence that is like stand up and cheer, tears streaming down your face. Great. Like that's how good it is. It's phenomenal. And there's a buddy of mine who is one of the illustrious, incredible producers on my show, who also just happens to be an illustrious, incredible fan of Real Blend and loves you guys. He's a very smart guy. His name is David, and he put it a perfect way that there's a moment where you sort of, because look, Sir Patrick Stewart is getting older, and it sounds like he's getting older, and it happens. But there's a moment where he sits down and you chills across your body, and you just look at him and go, holy shit, Picard is back. And you feel like you've been transported 30 years in the past. And it's just phenomenal. So if you were at all Star Trek fan, if you were all a Next Gen fan, if you ever were familiar with those characters, do yourself a favor, treat it like a mini series, treat it like a limited series, and enjoy the third season of Picard. It's really all you need. And it's a beautiful send off to an amazing cast of characters that's 20 years too late, but it's exactly what these characters deserved.
There you go. All right, I'm in. Let's get to the this week in movies. We're going to start with the film that we talked about at the beginning of the episode, made a little joke about, which is Beau is Afraid. Joaquin Phoenix starring in the new Ari Aster film. And unfortunately, up until this point, right as we're recording this, none of us have seen it. I can say that I am going to it as soon as we are done recording. I believe the guys are catching up with it later on this week.
I'm seeing it Thursday. Yeah.
Kev's going to see it on Thursday. And it's kind of rolling out slowly. Is it like a platform releasing? So
yeah,
I think it's full wide now this week. I think they moved it to a wide, right?
This week. Yeah, it was New York, LA last week. Yeah.
Okay, so we will be discussing it as the show rolls along. I'm sure we'll be giving our thoughts on what we think about it because it's new Ari Aster and it's our friend Joaquin Phoenix, who enjoys coming on the show every once in a while. And so stay tuned for our opinions on that. Kev got to see a movie that I am really, really excited about called The Covenant. Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. This is a weird movie in the sense that I've been seeing commercials and trailers for it, but I could never tell the whole time if it was like going to Amazon Prime or coming to theaters. And maybe because it's so close to like, there's a show out now called like The Diplomat, and it feels like there's something else on Amazon Prime that's like similar to this, but like this is the full blown movie that's going to theaters.
Yeah, I mean, it's Guy Ritchie. I do want to mention just for our own purposes, we did have Ari Aster on for Midsommar.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Go back and find that. He was fantastic. And also, and as Sean mentioned, we did have Joaquin Phoenix on for Joker, which is another great interview. If you're just finding us now, definitely check those out. So Guy Ritchie, I got to shout him out because I feel like he's low key out there just making awesome movies and kind of flying under the radar. There was that great film that he did with Jason Statham, Wrath of Man, where they were the heist for the bank cars, and then the Gentleman I thought was fantastic with Matthew McConaughey, a great performance from Hugh Grant in that movie as well. I just feel like growing up, Guy Ritchie was such a big deal, like for me, like Snatch and Lock, Stock, and obviously he went on to do Sherlock, and I thought Man from U.N.C.L.E. was phenomenal. But I do find, and again, I mean, this is just me, that Guy Ritchie kind of is a little underrated nowadays. I mean, he was somebody that I was really gung-ho about going to see his movies. I remember sneaking into Snatch, and like, you know, he had a very distinct vision. And I think with this film, The Covenant, this is the incredible, obviously Jake Gyllenhaal, who I would also argue is underrated. I think Jake Gyllenhaal is one of the most talented actors working today. And I say underrated because I don't feel like, again, he's not a huge box office draw, but he's a brilliant performer. And in this film, his character is a U.S. Army sergeant named John Kinley, and essentially teams up with an Afghan interpreter played by Dar Salim, who's unbelievable in the film. And the Covenant it's a bond. So essentially what happens is they get ambushed, and essentially the entire everyone dies in the ambush except for Gyllenhaal's character and Dar Salim's character. And at some point, Gyllenhaal's character gets shot and cannot operate on his own at all. So this interpreter, the character that Dar Salim plays, carries him across these mountains in Afghanistan, and it is incredibly hard to watch because you feel they're being shot at and looked for by the Taliban, and it's a really intense, very brutal film. But Gyllenhaal and him have
a true story. Was it?
It's not based on a true story, but it's based on real thing. This is a real aspect of war and the idea of having an interpreter, and there are real stories that this is being pulled from. This story in itself is fiction, but gotcha. At the end of the film, they do show you images of real interpreters with the military, and it's very kind of an interesting thing to see because this bond that's formed. And what I loved about the film is, so what ends up happening, and this is all in the trailers, essentially Gyllenhaal's character gets home safe, but Dar Salim's character ends up having to hide out in Afghanistan with his wife and child, and Gyllenhaal's character wants to get him out, and that's kind of like the whole concept of the film, is him trying to go back to Afghanistan to rescue him and bring him over to the United States and get him a visa and his family a visa. And I was just, first of all, Guy Ritchie he has a very signature style of filmmaking, but he doesn't really use what you would consider Guy Ritchie style in this film. There are shots and elements of score, but it's really a brutally immersive, intense look at just what it would be like to be on the ground in these mountains being hunted by the Taliban in Afghanistan. And it's genuinely interesting because Dar Salim's character, you know, is an Afghan interpreter. So a lot of people in Afghanistan, you know, you're betraying your country, etc. And so he's protecting this, you know, this U.S. Army sergeant. And it's just like this like really beautiful bond between these two characters. And this idea that, and Gyllenhaal says it in the film, he goes, I have a hook in me. And he has to go back and get this guy. And to me, that was just, it just kind of grabbed me. I was also Anthony Starr, who you might know from The Boys, phenomenal in this movie as well. I was just, to me, I was immersed in it. I thought it was super intense. I think Guy Ritchie is a great storyteller. It's really edgy your seat. It's very, very brutal, but also just great performances. I mean, Gyllenhaal is phenomenal in this. And, you know, he talks a little bit about this in the interviews that he played in Jarhead. So he's done a character in the military prior. But this is a very different character. This character is on a different level. This is a different rank. And so I just found the film to be exceptional in terms of the way it's shot, scored, performed. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, is it a perfect movie? No, I would give it a 4 out of 5. I don't think the reviews have been as kind to it as I'm being, but I'm just really out here thinking that Guy Ritchie is just kind of flying under the radar right now. Like Wrath of Man and The Gentleman and this, I thought were all great. I was very impressed.
I just want to go over his filmography. This is his run from 1998. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Snatch. He veers into his relationship with Madonna and they do Swept Away. Okay, fine. Revolver. Rock and Rolla. Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows. Man from U.N.C.L.E. King Arthur, Legend of the Sword.
Which was good. I liked King Arthur.
I liked it a lot.
The slow-mo was amazing.
I didn't hate his Aladdin. The Gentleman, Wrath of Man, and now The Covenant.
Also, I will say this is interesting. The official title of this film is Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. Did you guys know that? Like that's the actual title. It's not just The Covenant or Guy Ritchie's movie The Covenant. It is Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. That he is part of. Butler. He is literally part of the title. I found that really interesting. I wondered what the choice was on that, and I didn't have a chance to interview him for it. But it was weird seeing that pop up. But that is the actual title.
Discuss this with you guys, but as of next week, we are Sean O'Connell's Real Blend. I hope you don't mind.
And on that note, this is my last Real Blend episode.
What were you counting? You were counting something.
I was trying to.
Ones
I was
you
counting.
liked?
Yeah, ones I liked versus ones I didn't like.
Oh, what'd you end up at?
I heavily liked. Well, then I started hitting because I don't think I've seen Revolver.
Okay.
So I started hitting ones I hadn't seen before. But I heavily liked. Yeah, I like Rock and Roll. I did not like Wrath of Man. I was kind of left on a bad taste. But I did love Gentleman. I did not like his Aladdin. So I've been hit and miss with Guy Ritchie lately. But I think I'm far heavier in liking Guy Ritchie than not liking Guy Ritchie.
Man from U.N.C.L.E. is amazing, like genuinely amazing. Like I just feel like Guy Ritchie. I don't know. I just don't think he's talked about it enough.
That was going to be his franchise, but it didn't do that well. And I mean, he had Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer back when we thought Armie Hammer was a normal dude. Gabe, do you want to say something?
I just feel like Gyllenhaal is. I know everyone knows who he is. This is like the same thing as someone saying Brad Pitt is an underrated actor. And the reason we say that though is because they're so famous that you almost sometimes forget their body of work and their talent, in my opinion. And I think that like someone like Brad Pitt, like when you say underrated, it's not that he's not known. It's that I feel like there's not a lot of discussion about his talent, more about his celebrity and who he is. Gyllenhaal,
okay, I'm going to jump in. I want to ask you this question because I do think this is a fascinating study though about Gyllenhaal. People show up to Brad Pitt movies though. People don't really show up to Gyllenhaal movies. Why do you think that is? Like for someone who is so famous,
I know.
Like when was the last time he starred in a movie that actually did well at the box office?
And
Spider-Man Far From Home.
And what's interesting, it's interesting, but like
$1 billion.
I know, but he wasn't the star of it. But he wasn't. Yeah, Far From Home. But I mean, you got to think about like you go back to Donnie Darko, Brokeback. I think Enemy.
I think Prisoners did well. I think Prisoners.
I think we're overlooking the fact that he's not concerned with making $1 billion movies. He's been making. He was in Okja. He was in Nocturnal Animals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not knocking the guy. He does great work in great movies. I just think it's
smaller.
I just think it's someone who is so famous. Like, he's not a box office draw.
My point is, though, is he's not in movies that are set up for him to make a ton of money. I think he's taking movies so that they make more money than they should.
But you know what? I bet he could. More. I think he could if he wanted to. He could make easy choices, you know, and have a, but who, well, I mean, we're opening up to a much bigger conversation here, but like, who is a draw nowadays, you know, who honestly,
I just think if you look at his choices since like Prince of Persia and Love and Other Drugs, like around that year, and Source Code, I guess, is kind of a big movie.
I love Source Code.
I like Source Code.
Ever since then, I mean, we're talking End of Watch, which is a great film.
Oh gosh, really an amazing movie.
And that might have done well. I don't know on a box office front, but not a massive movie. Prisoners, Enemy, Nightcrawler.
We did
Nightcrawler
blend. Gyllenhaal blend would be really difficult.
Man, Nightcrawler.
Really difficult.
We've done Gyllenhaal. We've done Gyllenhaal blend.
Have we? But we did Maggie though. I bet.
Nightcrawler. Anybody out there who hasn't seen Denis Villeneuve's Enemy, see it. It is out. Wait, have you guys seen Enemy?
Oh yeah.
Enemy is perfect. We could redo Jake Gyllenhaal. It was episode 55.
Oh, that's been a while.
Do you want to know what you picked?
Of course.
What were our choices?
Sean, you picked Stronger.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Wow. So again, favorite performance.
This is what I'm saying. Think about how underrated he is. All these movies we just forget about.
Jake picked Nightcrawler.
I probably still would.
And Kevin picked Zodiac.
Ooh, that's cool. Oh, damn.
He's a madman.
Think about Gyllenhaal's filmography.
I know.
How many credits does he have, Gabe?
Let me look.
I'm going to guess over 100.
The reason he's so famous is because of his longevity. He's just been around for decades. He's been doing steady work for 30 years.
This is why he's underrated, again, because I think he's making interesting choices, not obvious choices. He has without stuff that's yet to come out, upcoming. His previous credits right now, 53.
Wow. Man.
Yeah. So I think he's committed to doing good work, making good choices.
I don't know. For some reason, he just feels underrated. I don't know.
Wow.
All right.
Let's move on to
he's great in The Covenant.
Chevalier, which again, plugging the interview that we did with writer Stephanie Robinson and director Stephen Williams. This is a period piece of sorts, based on a book?
Yeah, it was based on a real guy.
Oh, it's based on a real guy.
Yeah,
okay,
it's true story.
Played by Kelvin Harrison Jr. And he was
B.B. King and Elvis.
Right. And he's a musical prodigy who essentially is coming up during the time of Marie Antoinette and is trying to figure out how to fight his way into the closed off sort of cultural scene, and comes with this bit of, arrogance, I think, that comes with his talent, essentially, and the hurdles that he encounters over the course of his journey. I, as mentioned in the interview, if you guys give a chance to listen to it, was really blown away by the use of music and performance in this. Like it's quite often a lot of the story is told through these musical performances, through these lengthy musical sequences that show just how good this guy is. Chevalier is a title, is it not?
It's a title that was a part of his name.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
But didn't it have something to do with his musical abilities? The title Chevalier? I thought the title Chevalier had something to do with his musical abilities. I looked all this up
around when the junkie came out.
I'm seeing a knight, a chivalrous man, a member of a certain order of knighthood or modern French orders, such as the Legion of Honor. So it sounds like it's like an honorable. It's like a title associated to him. Yeah. Like Sir such and such.
What I liked most about it was that, and we talk a bit about this with Polite Society as well, too, is that these certain period films tend to really just turn me off. I tune out of them, right? They speak a specific way. They carry themselves with a specific air. And I thought that Chevalier sort of punctured right through that. I thought it had a really great hook with some really strong performances. And I was totally invested in this guy's journey through this, a society that you see often in movies that are made around this time period. So there's a lot of familiarity to it. But I really, really appreciated the way that they found different ways to get into his story and to keep us engaged in the stuff that he was going through. I thought Kelvin Harrison Jr. was fantastic in the part. He has the type of he pops like a movie star kind of thing. He has incredible screen charisma. And the reason why I talked a bit about the character's arrogance is just, I think that's the way that Kelvin Harrison carried himself a bit in the role. It's like when somebody knows that they're very good at something. And for this character, he knew he was very good at playing the violin or performing and composing. And I think Kelvin Harrison has a lot of confidence as an actor, and it shines through really well in this part. It goes really well with the role. But you do have to, it's from Focus Features. It is a period piece. You do have to know sort of that going into it, but I think it's one of the better told ones with an interesting story, some really interesting characters, and a good hook into that world. So I ended up enjoying it. And it's not the type of movie that I would recognize or that I would recommend normally. I just think it worked better for me than that types of films normally do. Jakey, were you with me on that? Or
Yeah, I really like this movie as well. This movie features a lot of historical figures, for which there have been a lot of movies made about them. Yeah. And I felt like what felt fresh about this movie is it feels like it's a lot of those stories told from a different perspective, sort of saying, there was someone else in the room too who was worth talking about, who is worth mentioning. I always say, I don't know about you guys, I love movie posters that take famous moments in movies, but put you on the other side of it or put you on a different angle. And that I kind of felt like this movie does that. It gives you a story that you're very familiar with, but from a completely different angle. I think Kelvin is one massive role away from just being one of the biggest stars on the planet. He's got Absolutely. The talent, he's got the charm, he's got the charisma. And I think whenever he does get that, because it seems like right now, almost like a Jake Gyllenhaal thing, where he's much more concerned about taking interesting parts and giving incredible performances than he is necessarily starring in the next big blockbuster or whatever. When he does finally take that part that kind of puts him in the mainframe focus for mainstream audiences, I think then they're going to look back and they're going to realize that he's got the resume of just incredible layered three-dimensional characters and performances that really indicate just what kind of actor he is. All those, he wasn't in Elvis a lot, but every moment he shared with Austin Butler, I thought was absolutely incredible. Yeah. He's just a really, really amazing actor. I liked everything about this. There's a really nice energy to it. And you mentioned the musical performances that almost remind me of the rap battles from 8 Mile, that really just kind of have a really great lightning to them, which I really appreciated.
Absolutely. Yes. The way that they're shot and the way that they position him as an underdog almost, coming into this society and the way that he's being judged. I wanted to look up because I felt like this movie won the People's Choice Awards at Toronto last year, but maybe not.
I thought Fabelmans did.
Oh, that might be true. Yeah, I think that's probably true. I knew it got really good reviews coming out of Toronto last year. Yeah. For some reason, I thought it won the award. Yeah. So Chevalier is coming to theaters. You should definitely check it out. I'm going to do Ghosted because I am the only one here that has seen Ghosted. Boy, I really wanted to like this movie. And it's just not good. It's actively bad. And I feel terrible. We talk about this all the time. It's difficult to interview somebody who's a guest on the show and then not like the movie that they are coming on the show to discuss. But I honestly can't, I had a hard time getting through Ghosted. It's essentially, you have to believe this premise. Chris Evans is a farmer who is struggling to find the right girl.
I've seen him split wood with his bare hands. I believe he's a farmer, I guess. I'm already in.
The farmer's not the aspect I'm concerned about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry.
He works a table at a farmer's market. Very beautiful women come up to his booth and openly flirt with him. But
so it acknowledges that he looks like Chris Evans.
But he's so bad with girls that he can't quite figure out how to close the deal, kind of thing. They do acknowledge it. And the other women around him at the tables are like, honey, look at, she's flirting with you, kind of thing. And he's like, no, I don't really see that. So he's trying to play against type. And there have been stories saying that he wants to stop playing the cool guy, and after being Captain America for X amount of years. So he's trying to play nerdy, which he doesn't do very well. And he cute meets Ana de Armas.
Meet cute.
You know, thank you. If you do a meet cute, don't you cute meet somebody? I'm trying to flip that in some way to make it
Gabe,
work.
can you look that up?
Hard pass.
The verbal use of meet cute. That he meets her.
Is past tense he cute met?
And he met cuted her.
Let's see. It took us 43 minutes to lose it.
To derail the show. All right, let me bring it back down to normal and say, so he ends up meeting Ana de Armas, and the two of them have a again, flirtatious bit of a relationship where they keep misunderstanding each other. And then she doesn't respond to his text messages. He sends her 2 or 3 different text messages. His sister makes fun of him because he's needy, in relationships. And he's the guy who always has to sort of, be constantly in communication with this person. So it's so bad. This is in the opening couple of minutes, so I'm not really revealing too much about the movie at all. He has asthma, and he leaves his inhaler in her bag on their date, their first date kind of thing. And when he's concerned that she's not returning his text messages, he left one of those tracking chips, that tells you where your wallet is or your cell phone is. Like, that's on his inhaler. So he's able to see that she is in London. And he goes, oh, that's probably normal. She's a businesswoman. She talked about, that she was in like international freight kind of thing. And his mom goes, you should surprise her by going over there and meeting her. And he goes, you know what? I've got some vacation time planned. That's a good idea.
Is that referred to in the genre a meat creep? Is that how they?
That's probably one way to put it. Yes. Interesting. So next thing you know, we're in London, and he's trying to find Ana de Armas. So it's a dumb movie in that instance. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. The premise is really, really weak. And then from that point on, the film is a globe-trotting type film that looks like it cost about $35 to make. And maybe it was COVID. Maybe they had to shoot a ton on green screen and they weren't able to sort of go around and shoot in all the different places they want to shoot. I don't know when they filmed this. I can only tell you that the finished product looks really, really bad. It's a bad premise. It's a really, really bad script. And the two of them are not even enjoyable to watch, unfortunately. So I would skip Ghosted at all costs. I'm bummed that instead of seeing Evil Dead Rise, I had to watch Ghosted. And the boys instead got to watch the new chapter in the Evil Dead franchise. Kev, you talked about eating a big old plate of spaghetti while you were watching Evil Dead, right?
Yeah.
It's a joke I made about Kevin eating lunch. You mentioned this is pretty gory, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the movie is insane. I mean, I grew up on the Evil Dead film, so Sam Raimi was like a huge film school teacher for me, and just in terms of the way he used camera as POV, those incredible shots that as we're in the POV of the evil going into the person. There's some of the effects in Sam Raimi's early films, the practical effects, the stop motion animation, the hand. I mean, everything about those films was so unique and interesting. And then Army of Darkness was incredible as well. And I even thought that, was it the 2013 Evil Dead film was with just the Evil Dead, I think, or no, the Evil Dead was the first one.
Fetty Alvarez, right?
81 was the Evil Dead. 2013 was Evil Dead.
Is this new one attached to that one at all? To the 2013?
I mean, really. Not that I know of from a story standpoint. I mean, this one basically takes place in the other ones, correct me if I'm wrong, outside Army of Darkness were in the woods, right? In the cabin. Yes. Yeah. Even the 2013 one, right, Jake?
Yeah. I think that's kind of a staple of the franchise, is like each one is kind of its own thing. Even when they have Ash, it's like Army of Darkness is a totally different.
Does it have a necromancer, the book?
Yep. Necronomicon, is that what it's called?
You mean the Book of the Dead?
Book of the Dead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that in this new one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's got all the Evil Dead tropes. It's just not in the cabin in the woods.
Gotcha.
And Alyssa Sutherland and Lily Sullivan are the two leads. They're both Australian actresses. They play estranged sisters who essentially have a reunion that is interrupted by some disturbing violence and brutal, bloody gore. And it's honestly, this movie was relentless. And I was telling the actors this is one of the first horror films I've seen in a long time where I didn't feel safe watching it. And what I mean by that is there's kids in this film. There's characters. The Alyssa Sutherland's character has children, and they're just because they're kids doesn't mean that they're not going to be involved in horribly violent sequences, and they do not hold back. And that's the thing I found interesting about it is sometimes you think of a young kid in a film, and I know that this is different in every other horror film, but in other horror films we've seen it before, and kids have been hurt in films before. We've seen it, like It and things like that, but this was just on a different level, because we're essentially in an apartment building the entire film, and it is just absolutely brutal, relentless, and there is nobody safe in this film. The youngest kids, the sweetest children you could think of, are not safe from the violence that's about to be inflicted on these characters. And that's what makes the film so terrifying, is that like you just like you go, oh, they won't go there, and then you see somebody eat glass and swallow it, and parts of it come out their neck. That's in the trailer. But they found ways to really bring you into the violence. And at some point it just becomes so insane. It's actually legit scary. There are moments where Alyssa Sutherland's character, she's the character that Jacob, this is not spoiling, I think she's the one who kind of first gets taken over.
Yep, it's in the trailer.
in that part of the story. And there's moments of her looking through the door, talking to her family that are images of her face that are going to terrify me for years. And it is, from what I understand, they used over 1,500 gallons of blood, fake blood, for this film. It is drenched in blood. There's a Shining reference at one point, Jake. I'm sure you caught that.
Is the story any good? Were you invested in the story?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the story is basically two sisters who have been estranged. The one sister comes to visit, and this all goes down. So it's, it's not really like the most insanely original concept, but the concept of what makes the movie so scary is the way it's shot, and the claustrophobia you feel in the apartment, and just the relentless nature of this evil and this possession and these flesh-eating demons. And it's just something that I wasn't expecting it to go where it went in terms of the violence level and kind of the way that the younger characters are treated in the film. They just don't hold back. And I think that's what made the film so terrifying to me, is that sometimes you feel like you could be a little safe. You go, oh, nothing's going to happen to that person, that little girl's going to be fine. And I mean, it is very, very brutal, but also well acted, well shot, really, really interesting in terms of the way they found ways to play with the violence and play with the blood and play with the apartment style building and being on the 14th floor, I think it was, in the building itself, and elevator being not working or not being able to use the fire escape. How would you get out? What would you do? So all those things come into play in terms of the intensity of it. I was floored by it. I just didn't, no one's really ready for how brutal this film is. Like, it's really, really, really brutal. So I thought it was incredibly well done. Is it good? Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a really very well made horror film. Would I see it again? No, because I don't want to watch that violence again, but it is very well done.
Of it is what you're saying. Yeah. Don't go to one of those dine-in theaters where they have wings.
Yeah, get a Bloody Mary or something. Yeah, enjoy.
Jake, you live in an apartment building. Did it change your mind about where you want to live?
No, because I grew up in the woods. So, I mean, it's, between either way, I'm screwed. I like this movie a lot. The Evil Dead movies have never necessarily been known for their wildly complicated plots. I mean, it's basically, I don't mean to compare it to the genre of torture porn, because like the Evil Dead movies were always better than that period of horror that came out in like the early 2000s. But it is basically the concept of like, person gets possessed, and what are all the horrible things that are going to happen to that person, and the horrible things that person is going to inflict on others. And can you make it through the movie without covering your eyes while watching all these wild things? And that's exactly what this Evil Dead delivers. The big sort of twist here with this film being that it takes place in I feel like an unnamed city, Kevin. They never do say whether it's like LA or New York or Detroit or whatever. Like, I think it's almost like Seven, where it's just supposed to be kind of
an apartment building that could be in any major metropolis area, as opposed to a cabin in the middle of the woods, as is normally the case outside of Army of Darkness. But I liked it a lot. There were definitely moments where I was like, oh my god, like we kind of, you watch it through the cracks in your fingers. These movies are oftentimes love letters to practical effects. Like, Lee Cronin does a really good job of honoring what Evil Dead started as with Sam Raimi, but also advancing using the technology that we have today. And I got to give him credit. Any good Evil Dead movie knows that at some point you got to plug in a chainsaw and it's got to be utilized in a really fun, creative, graphic, brutal way. And he finds a really good way to do that. I will say that, for the first 2/3 of it, I was sort of watching and going, okay, like this is a good Evil Dead movie, but like it's not really, outside of being in an apartment building, it's not breaking the mold. It's not really giving me really that much that I haven't seen before, other than maybe like different ways to make me squeamish. The last act, I will tell you, without giving anything away, and Kevin knows what I'm talking about, the last act I went, okay, all right, this is new, this is fresh, this is fucked up to a level that I was not prepared for. I was not preparing to see that visual. I was not preparing for this movie to go that way. So in a lot of ways, he does attempt to take a series of films that like do have the capacity to kind of be repetitive in a way and honor them, give audiences what they love about them, but then also go like, okay, but here are all the things that but then what if at the end of the story this happened? And I think that's really what keeps it on the fresher end for me. I did like the 2013 reimagining, whatever it is you want to call it, better than this one, because I do feel like for me these stories just hit better when they exist in a cabin in the woods. Like, to me, Evil Dead is like that singular cabin out there in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. Like that's what Evil Dead is to me in my heart. And I do appreciate them.
That's why I like this one better though, because
you like the city
setting,
angle. Yeah.
The setting helped it. Like it's, if you could imagine like Bruce Campbell's cast in an apartment building and what they could utilize.
Sure.
It's interesting. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think maybe once, like, if we start progressing and like getting these stories in different settings, and then we realize we get a better picture, a more broad portrait of these demons taking place in different places around the earth, then I think it'll be easier for me to accept. But like for me, like in my heart, these Evil Dead has always been tethered to a singular cabin in the middle of the woods, and it didn't hold me as much being in a singular apartment building. It didn't have as much of an impact on me.
It's kind of fascinating me to think about this right now, that this franchise, although it's not like, it's a beloved franchise by horror fans, it's not, a blockbuster franchise necessarily, but is it kind of fascinating that this hasn't really turned into hey, we need 8 movies in characters that are it hasn't gotten Scream 6,
trilogy, a trilogy, a TV show, a remake.
This is 5.
A 5 and a TV show.
This is 5 already.
Yeah, but they're not like what I mean is like they're not franchised in like a connected storyline.
It's funny, and even like, because keep in mind, Empire Magazine called the Ash the greatest horror movie character of all time.
Slow down.
I'm just telling you, I do. I'm just telling you what happened. And so I interviewed Bruce Campbell 2 weeks ago. And whenever I went to my newsroom, because I kind of disappear, I go to a different part of my studio. And whenever I came back, they're like, oh, who'd you interview? And I said, Bruce Campbell. And instantly, one of my producers goes, oh, from Sky High.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, well, from Evil Dead, but
Sky
sure.
High is great, though.
Yeah, but it's funny. It's almost, I said that's the equivalent of me saying like, oh, I interviewed Jamie Lee Curtis, and someone going, oh, from Freaky Friday. It's like, well, from Halloween, but sure.
Oh, from those commercials. Commercials.
Hey, that's Academy Award winner Jamie Lee Curtis now.
Was there a moment in Evil Dead Rise where Bane shows up and says no one cares about him until he wore the mask?
How long have you been saving that joke?
Since you started talking.
He's been waiting on me to stop talking.
5 minutes. I was either going to do that or I was going to try to do the Batman voice when he told Jim Gordon about putting a coat around an orphan, a reassuring gesture about putting a coat around an orphan.
They did have to redo the demon's dialogue though, because you couldn't hear it.
Did they really?
Yeah.
It's good to know. All right, let's throw it to a break. And on the other side, we're going to play Sam Raimi Blend. And we are back. Okay, so this week's blend game, thanks to the Evil Dead Rise, is going to be Sam Raimi Blend. And I will have Kevin choose his favorite Sam Raimi film. Kev, where'd you go?
Okay, so Evil Dead 2 was the one that I was going to think of, but now I can't not use Spider-Man 2 because that's still next to The Winter Soldier, one of my favorite superhero films of all time. Just from a character perspective, the way Raimi directed that film, but also, the Doc Ock aspect of it. Alfred Molina is incredible in that movie. That was one of the first superhero films before The Dark Knight that I remember hitting me on a really dramatic level, in a different way. Like Spider-Man 2, while it's fantastical and has obviously it is what it is. It's a superhero film, but I also felt like the drama and the performances and the Alfred Molina arc and the character and that whole ending, like there was just something special about Toby and him performing at the end, and just the arcs of the characters. And one of the things I loved about those Spider-Man films were, especially even with like the first one with Green Goblin and Willem Dafoe, was the person that the villain would become when they would, get into their suit or into their costume or whatever, whatever their minds were being altered in some way. And there was always those strange emotional moments, those beautiful emotional moments where the person would come to, right, and they would be themselves again. Didn't they do a reversal of that in No Way Home?
Well, there's a nice callback to that in No Way Home when they finally cure Norman.
Yeah,
and Defoe gives this great line reading where he looks around and he goes, "What have I done?" He knows things went south somewhere, but he doesn't. He has no recollection of it, essentially.
And that's why those films work so well. Like at the end of Spider-Man 2, like you understand Molina's position in his arc and what he went through and what he's doing and like how he's being controlled by this machine essentially. And I think those moments to me, as aside from all the action and all the incredible special effects and the way Raimi was really kind of ahead of his time in learning how to figure out how to get Spider-Man to fly in these films. And there was just something interesting about the way he orchestrated these movies. And again, it was the grounded nature of them that hit me, but also the action in Spider-Man 2 is insane. That movie is awesome. The train sequence is insanely incredible. And I just found that film as a Danny Elfman's music, and there's just something special about that movie. Before The Dark Knight, it was just something that I felt grounded and connected to. And then The Dark Knight obviously took it to a whole different level and turned it into a crime drama, which was essentially Heat. But at the end of the day, the stepping stone from Raimi and kind of what he was doing and dealing. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're dealing with fantastical elements like a character called Spider-Man or a character called Doc Ock or, Green Goblin or whatever you're dealing with, these are all so otherworldly aspects that are not, that don't have human things that we can relate to in our real world. So to me, the point of a good director is then grounding those moments in real emotion and real character driven aspects with real great actors who can deliver it. I mean, Alfred Molina, I would imagine early in his career, do you think he ever imagined he'd be walking around with like 8 tentacles off of his, off of his body and like doing, CGI and special effects and things like that. And, the effects on that movie looked amazing. Like they still look incredible how they were able to pull that off.
Mostly are puppetry. It's a lot of puppetry in early stages. Yeah. There's
unbelievable.
A team that's working those arms.
It's unbelievable. So that's my favorite. I mean, Evil Dead 2.
You could have given a 2-word reason why you chose Spider-Man 2.
Why?
Bill Pope, baby.
Well, Bill Pope's brilliant.
Bill Pope shot
genius cinematographer who also did The Matrix. He also shot Clueless. But he's an amazing DP, and I love Spider-Man 2. Evil Dead 2 had a special place in my heart because as a kid, when I saw that in high school, it was just remarkable. I had no idea how they were even doing it with the hand moving around. I was like, how did they do that? It's so cool. So Spider-Man 2 is my choice.
All right. Well, obviously it's my choice as well, too. Jake, did you choose it as well, too?
Yeah, but I did want to give a quick shout out to A Simple Plan, which is one of my favorite movie endings of all time. If you haven't seen A Simple Plan, that is a brilliant film. And I would love for Sam to make more movies like that if he got the chance.
Well, keep going on Spider-Man 2 for you, and then I'll close it out because I actually wanted to do a Simple Plan also, but I can't put it over Spider-Man.
And that's the thing too. Like I really wanted to try to convince myself that it was a Simple Plan, but if we're talking like favorite, which is always the struggle of this game, if we're talking true-hearted favorite, I gotta go Spider-Man 2. Everything Kevin said, Kevin beautifully said. But this movie really broke the mold, and explored. I don't want to say the first time to explore, but maybe one of the best examples of the impact that being a superhero has on the personal life of these people, of Peter Parker. There's that beautiful, I think, if I had to list the top 10 singular shots in superhero movies, that image of the suit, of the Spider-Man suit halfway out the trash can as Peter Parker's walking away down the alley, it would probably be top 5. A really great example of balancing what makes this genre great to begin with, everything, the action and the amazing villains and the witty dialogue and the humor, but then also like the heart comes from like asking the audience, like, you do realize that like this is hard, right? Like I get that you enjoy seeing this guy swing around and kick ass and beat up the bad guys, and that's a lot of fun, but like pause for a moment and realize how difficult this is on him. Like at the end of the day, I think one of the things that we all love about Peter Parker is that he's a kid. Like he's in high school in the first one. He's just in college in the second one. Like he is what at our age we would refer to as a kid, and no kid should have to shoulder the responsibility that he does. And at the end of the day, all he wants to do is go on a date and have a successful date. And anyone that age should be able to do that. But to say that you can't do it because it's your responsibility to save the city of New York is unfair. And I thought that the movie did a really great example of what if someone just threw their hands up in the air and said, you know what, I can't do it. You can't ask me to do it. It's not fair of you to ask me to do it. And to me, that is what makes this movie great, is then what pushes him to that point and what brings him back. And that is why Spider-Man 2 is one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. And as much as I wanted to try to be cerebral and pick Simple Plan, I couldn't pick Spider-Man 2 over a Simple Plan. Or I couldn't pick Simple Plan over Spider-Man 2. I couldn't do it. Simple
Plan is incredible, though. Everybody needs to check that out if you haven't yet. I don't know a lot about Spider-Man. I'll let you guys speak for him. So I'll just.
I wrote a book about it.
It's a really good one, too. You should definitely check it out.
I'm also writing one about Bruce Willis currently. It's the best.
How's it going?
It's brilliant.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I keep asking my friends to read it, but they never get back to me. Okay. So the reason why I think Spider-Man 2 is Raimi's best film is because it showed he went into that picture with a confidence that he didn't have in the first movie, which, he didn't know if all of it was going to work, if it was going to connect. And he had to serve a lot of different masters on the first movie in terms of the studio and in terms of Marvel and checking a lot of boxes that they thought they needed for their Spider-Man movie. And for the most part, they were correct. But you don't get the emergency room, arms coming alive and attacking the doctors unless Sam Raimi feels more confident, in his vision.
Yeah. Well, that's an Evil Dead. That's such an Evil Dead love letter, that sequence.
Absolutely. Yes. He was allowed to finally start to bring his voice, and the things that make Sam Raimi. Something as stupid as the Peter Parker coming out of the broom closet and all the mops falling on him, like he waits a minute or two, Raimi, in that moment because he knows it's funny, and Maguire plays it great, and that's why Pizza Time is such a terrific meme that everybody really enjoys. It's the little moments. It's when Melina and Tobey Maguire are just sitting around discussing the science that they both love so much before Melina turns into Dr. Octopus, and them bonding over their love of knowledge, essentially, which I think is so beautiful. And that's what sets up their relationship. Later on, the loss of Alfred Molina's wife, Dr. Octopus's wife, which is a brutal has It's a shard of glass that comes essentially right at her face, shot wonderfully by Pope. The bank heist has a great mix of humor, and puts Aunt May in danger. I still, every single time she's hanging from the umbrella, I breathe a sigh of relief when she lands on the ledge and is right underneath her feet. Raimi shot that beautifully. The train sequence that Kevin mentioned earlier has got to be still one of the greatest action set pieces in any Spider-Man film. I think the movie kind of ends there. The stuff at the warehouse is fine, but after that sequence, it's all downhill. It shows Peter, sacrificing himself to stop the train. Has some of the worst CGI at the very end. I cannot not watch that sequence without the very end when the train is going off the rail and he's stopped it, but it still just sort of bubbles forward a little bit. And there's a cartoon Spider-Man hanging onto the front.
Oh, I've never noticed that, and now I feel like I'm not going to be able to unsee it.
It's ruined. Right before they put their hands on his chest to catch him before he falls, there's a horrible CGI Tobey Maguire that's like rattling on the front of the train. Awful. I can't not say it any single time. And it's great. Everybody understood the assignment. They totally understood what they needed to do to evolve those characters, whether it be Toby or Kirsten or James Franco. Melina coming on board. It's funny, Kevin, you were talking about like having an actor like Melina come in and not expect to play a villain, but like that even goes back to, Nicholson playing the Joker or Ian McKellen playing Magneto. It was almost like real actors understood, oh wait, we can take these parts. There's good material here, and if we treat them seriously, then we can actually, and I think you see so much of that nowadays with Robert Redford, being in Captain America, and Michael Douglas being in Ant-Man and all this different stuff. So all that stuff is legendary.
And also Tim Burton's Batman, I do want to mention, was grounded, but in a different way. I felt that it feels there's definitely a grounded nature to what Burton did and what Nicholson did and Keaton did, of course. And I don't want to discount that, but there was something about Spider-Man 2 that just hit differently.
Sure.
I don't know. It was just the tone of it. It was just awesome. It was well made. Well, everything
level.
About it.
It was definitely street level.
I agree.
It didn't feel Burton's Gotham
didn't feel fantastical.
Felt like a different place.
Yeah. You're right. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Some real beauty to that. All right, audience picks. Matt Caron went with Army of Darkness. Can't go wrong with there. William Barnes backed us up, said a simple plan. Johnny went with the OG Evil Dead, and there's a lot of love for all three of his Spider-Man films. So terrific choices by everybody who played along with Sam Raimi blend. Just first two.
I remember one of the first interviews I ever did for my old movie show was I had Sam Raimi on for Drag Me to Hell, which is a really great movie of his, really scary. And I remember Spider-Man 3 just came out. I'm like, hey man, I actually really like Spider-Man 3. He goes, you and my mom. I was like, all right, you know what? I'm cool. Mrs. Raimi and I are in the same boat. I'm good.
All right. So next week, reach out on Twitter, or you can let us know your pick via email at realblend@cinemablend.com. We're going to be playing hashtag Summer Movie 2023 Blend. It's a long ass hashtag.
It is, yeah.
Summer Movie 2023 Blend. And Gabe, what does that mean? The movie that we're most anticipating?
Most anticipating in the summer season. May is when the summer movies kick off officially, and we're getting one right at the top with Guardians.
Can we, for shits and giggles, take Oppenheimer out of the conversation? Can we just say that that's understood?
Okay, sure.
For other people, though?
For the folks at home, give me your honest answer.
The folks can play. I'm saying for us.
I mean, to be fair, Oppenheimer was not going to be my pick. So you're saying, you're saying it was going to be Kevin. So you're removing it for Kevin.
I'm removing it for Kevin. Okay. Because I still want him to be able to play the game.
And what's going to be a great plot twist is if his number 2 is Barbie. Which it might be.
All right.
Yeah. So everyone out there, you can pick Oppenheimer. I just won't pick it.
Yes.
We all know that it's actually the correct choice.
Well, and I won't pick. How about this? I won't pick Across the Spider-Verse because that seems too easy.
Well, I already know your pick's mission.
Come to the table. You boys come to the table with a couple.
Might not be.
Couple options.
Oh, okay. We can play a few.
Just bring a couple options. Know what your list is, and we'll have a conversation.
5. Everyone bring 5.
No. We do not have time for that.
All right. Here is the point in the show where I would normally read reviews from our dear listeners, but no one has sent us one in a really long time.
Why do you hate us?
So instead, I will go right to the outro. Our next premium episode is a mailbag, which we always enjoy doing. If you want to send us some questions that you would like answered from the 3 or 4 of us, so drop us a question. Again, in the description to tell you where you can sign up for Real Blend Premium, which gets you a bonus episode of the show, a newsletter, and an ad-free version of the main show. In the meantime, follow us on social media at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, at Gabe Kovach, and the show is at Real Blend. We'll be back next week with a bonus episode on Wednesday, a full episode on the Friday show, and we're going to play Summer Movie Blend. So we'll see you guys then. Oppenheimer.
I'm going to say Dead Reckoning Part 1 because we want Tom Cruise on the show.
Barbie.